2016, man, what a year. That's all I can say. And even though it's ending on a really huge down note, too, this was one of the most surreal years I've ever lived in. Not just because of the political upheaval and just turn on the news, man. Not just like political stories, like every year this weird story would come out that would make it seem like the world would explode by year's end. And we got a few more days, so maybe that's still going to happen. Now, let me talk about the entertainment industry. I mean, I talk about movies a lot on this channel, but a lot of big blockbusters this year kind of failed to deliver. But I'm more concerned about music this time around. I'm looking at people who review pop music on YouTube for a living, and every single one of them looks like they want to kill themselves. It was that bad a year. And even when they put up their best of lists, it seems to be like they still want to kill themselves because the best of this year wasn't very good. I assume hip-hop's not going to be all that better, and listening to the alternative station at my work, it's them mostly playing stuff from the previous years, and wasn't that great a year for alternative music as well. Unless you were 21 Pilots and that radio wouldn't stop playing you every 20 goddamn minutes. So comparatively, metal had a pretty half-decent year. Really good year, actually, more I think about it. I mean, we came into this year without Lemmy, with him passing away exactly a year ago. But I think wanting to do him good had this year produce a lot of really good music. So, now time to do my obligatory end-of-the-year list. Even though I only reviewed one piece of music this year, I don't think I'm comfortable reviewing one album a year, so I think I'm just going to do lists from now on when I talk about music. And yes, this is my personal top 25 metal albums of the year, with honorable mentions and disappointments. And that being said, I want to tell people that this year, there's at least 40 metal albums released every goddamn week. I can't possibly listen to them all, especially with what little budget I have. So invariably, I'm going to be missing a lot of stuff. I've already been looking at a lot of people's best of year-end lists, and I am missing a lot of stuff. So that's why I'm going to make a promise to all y'all that when July starts, I'm going to have a list that's the best of 2016 that I missed, because I did miss a lot. And I'm also going to tell you, it's going to be a pretty long list, so you might want to grab something to drink. Wow, that is awful. Starting off the year with disappointments, and starting off is Flaw. Now, if you don't know who Flaw is, they're one of the nu metal bands that never really got the recognition they deserve. Despite recording two really good albums, the nu metal Staple Through the Eyes and the really good Endangered Species, they never really caught on. Much to their disappointment, because I really thought Flaw had a lot more to say than your average nu metal band. Especially with Chris Volz's vocals. His vocals have much more of an emotional, powerful impact to them, and the lyrics they talked about are definitely from the heart. And after a homemade studio album in 2009, they finally come back with Divided We Fall, and it blows. Instead of trying to do what Flaw best, which is, emotionally driven hard rock songs, we got an album that really goes into nu metal's worst stereotypes. And Chris's voice doesn't even seem as powerful as it used to be, making me wonder what happened. Hell, the shittily produced Homegrown Studio Sessions was a lot better than this. There's a lot of bands now trying to bring back nu metal, and that's a genre no one really wants to see come back. Because while there were some good nu metal bands, a lot of them really sucked. But I thought Flaw wasn't one of them, but here they go proving me wrong, releasing this album, and it's not great. I'm extremely disappointed because this band can do a hell of a lot better, and has done. Please get Endangered Species. That's a much better album than this. Next disappointment, Flesh God Apocalypse's King. And this is sort of a problem with the entirety of the symphonic metal genre as a whole. No one can really balance the symphonic and the metal part correctly. A lot of times the symphonic overpowers the metal. Not a lot of people can hit that early Nightwish stride. But attempting to fuse symphonic metal, something that's usually melodic, with death metal, something that isn't all that melodic, is a notable cause. However, this album doesn't really pack the death metal riffs that it probably should have. Instead, I found a lot of this album just chugging along the bottom street with nearly any diversity or virtuosity to it that death metal usually has. So this is a disappointment. On the other side of that coin, we got Obscura's Acroasis. And this is a problem with the tech death genre as a whole, is that a lot of people seem to want to just show how good they are at instruments, and not actually getting the balance between actually having decent songs. It's just a bunch of guitar, bass, and drum wankery. Which really disappoints me because Obscura is better than this. Cosmogenesis from 2009, or 8, 9, one of those. That album is really good, as it's them being really good musicians, but also them really being good songwriters. And the march of a good songwriter is something that can stick with you. But trying to listen to this album 3 times, it completely left my memory as soon as it stopped playing. If that doesn't mean the song is bad, then I don't know what is. Oh yeah, Rotting Christ released an album this year. Do you remember it? I sure didn't. Look, I like Rotting Christ, but you definitely want to start with their albums Sanctus Diabolos or Thagonia. This album, Rituals, just seems like the band is releasing a career album, that they're phoning it in. I mean, even their last record had like 2 songs that I could remember. I don't remember anything about this record after listening to it. And the last disappointment is actually an album that pissed me off. Woven War's Honor is Dead. Woven War were from the ashes of As I Lay Dying. When all the members who didn't want to kill their wives came together and wanted to move away from the guy who did. And they got the guitarist for Oh Sleeper to sing for him. And what we got was not what a lot of people expected. This wasn't As I Lay Dying Part 2. This was the band moving on and trying to do something more melodic and slightly more accessible, and I thought it was really, really good. It was catchy, it was memorable, and I liked singing along to it. This, however, they listened to those stupid critics that wanted them to be harsher, and it doesn't work. It just comes off as I Lay Dying light without the memorable riffs that the band had in their mid-period. What happened? Do what your heart tells you, not really what the critics want you to do. Otherwise it comes off as pandering and sloppy, and this is what this is. Their first album is so good, I couldn't stop listening to this. This one, I couldn't really even get through with it because I was so bored. Now with that out of the way, let's get into honorable mentions. Albums I liked, but didn't make my top 25. I might still piss people off. First honorable mention is Amon Amarth, the Viking, because it's Amon Amarth. They really haven't changed their sound since Versus the World, and since they perfected it with Odin on Our Side. I mean, this is still a really good record. I like listening to it, and it's a head-banging treat. However, it's more Amon Amarth. If you like Amon Amarth, of course you're going to like this. Anthrax For All Kings. I just wasn't really feeling this one as much as their last record. I mean, their last record was a comeback album done really well, especially after the tumultuous history with singers they had up until then. But this one just didn't stick for me. I still enjoyed it, but it just didn't stick for me. Candlemass's Death Thy Lover. Just a simple EP with kind of new singer Mats Yevon. I mean, he sang with Leaf before in his Crux band, so it's no surprise that he would jump on a ship to Candlemass when their singer previously left. So I'm not surprised that it's good. It's an EP though, it's short. It's short, and I think Leaf's working on a lot of other projects too. Next is Dark Tranquillity's Atoma. Dark Tranquillity are one of my all-time favorite bands. So why is Atoma on the list? Well, I gotta hand it to the guys. They lost guitarist Martin Henriksen at the beginning of this year because he just felt that he didn't want to do music anymore. He didn't have the passion for it, and so the band decided to soldier on. To their credit, Atoma come out sounding great. However, it meanders a bit, and they've done a lot better. And there was much better melodic death metal records to come out this year. So I don't hate this record by any means. It's still really good. Just not top 25 good. Dark Throne, Arctic Thunder. Finally, they kinda stopped sucking. For those of you who know who Razorfist is, I don't agree with him all the time, but he kinda nailed it out of the park when he talked about Dark Throne's decline in quality. With their really bizarre crust punk quadrigy that didn't make a lot of sense to longtime listeners of the band. It didn't really sound like you're going back to their roots, because this sounds kind of fake, guys. And the Underground Resistance, while a step up, a lot of other bands have been doing that sound a lot better. And this Arctic Thunder adds a bit more black metal back to their neo-traditional sound that they're trying to do. And it works to their favor. The album's still not as good as how Dark Throne used to be, but this is a step in the right direction for him. Oh, I got the 0 sugar, 0 calorie thing. No wonder it tastes like asshole. Next we got Dream Theater's The Astonishing, the only album I actually reviewed on this channel. And I kind of expected it not to make one of my top 10s this year, even though Dream Theater is probably one of my second or third favorite bands. And I still really like this album. However, yeah, it is a bit too up their own ass. The concept is a bit too wild, the songs are way too short, and it just sounds like something that would have been better done as a Pertrusi Rudess side project. I mean, I still liked it, but this is Dream Theater and they're capable of much more cohesive stuff than this. Fallujah, Dreamless, another honorable mention. The atmospheric death metal genre is something that I haven't been really paying attention to, but I kind of want to now, because this album, while it didn't really tickle my fancy all that much, I kind of get what the genre wants to do. So I'm probably going to go back and explore some other albums from the atmospheric death genre, because this was not a bad place to start. Hell yeah, Undeniable. Well, I think a lot of people really want to like this band, even though they don't really have that much new to say because it's Vinnie Paul's band. But this being my first album I actually bought from them, it's not half bad. It's really not my cup of tea, though. I think a lot of people just want a new Mudvayne record, but considering that the Mudvayne guitarist is now not in the band anymore, it looks like that riff ain't healing anytime soon. Killswitch Engage Incarnate. I fucking loved Disarm the Descent when it came out. I don't know why Incarnate didn't really resonate with me as well as Disarm the Descent did. I've seen this at the top of a bunch of other people's best of lists, but this just didn't stick with me after several listens. It's still good, but I think they can do better. Next one, Megadeth Dystopia. Hey guys, what Super Collider, Dave Mustaine says as he hurriedly pushes copies of that album under his bed to make sure nobody sees. This is just basically him making up for that pile of shit. It's still pretty good, but the problems with this period of Megadeth are still there. Dave Mustaine sounds like he's starting to lose his voice, and it's just not really breaking as much boundaries as the band used to. Still really good. Great to hear Chris Adler on this record, too. And I enjoyed it. Just not top 25 material. For me, at least. Meshuggah, The Violent Sleep of Reason. Y'all! It's not that good! It's good, but it's not that good. This is on, like, everybody's top 10s list. Top 10s list, and it's been on number 1 on 3 different lists. It's not that great, guys. It's really good, and it's Meshuggah. But what are they doing different than they did in Colossus? What are they doing different than they did at freaking Obscene? What are they doing any different than they did in Nothing? This is a band that has found its niche and is sticking with it and hasn't really changed its past couple of records. Don't get me wrong, we don't want them to change, but as where bands like Dillinger Escape Plan add new influences and like to experiment a lot more on each new record, Meshuggah have found their sound and are sticking with it. I'm not saying it's bad, far from it. This album is excellent. However, it's nothing new or inventive. I don't know why a lot of people are putting this on their number 1 spot when it's the exact same as their previous couple of albums. Still good, but not breaking any new ground. Next honorable mention, Opeth Sorceress. Oh boy, I'm not going to make a lot of friends doing this. It's not the fact that there's no death metal vocals on the band anymore. I can get that. I accept it. But because this is a problem that's been going on since Watershed. That a lot of the tracks have started to meander. It's not really building atmosphere when you're just putting your finger on the keyboard a couple of times and there's big pauses in the record. The songwriting's not as memorable, the songs are not as memorable as previous albums. Don't get me wrong, this is probably the best of this new Opeth they're doing. However, it's just missing what made Opeth great. I think when Peter left, he took a lot of cohesiveness with him. Because again, this problem predates to Watershed when there were still death metal vocals on the record. I mean, I still liked it, but it definitely lost me halfway through because the songs just aren't as memorable as they were in the previous record. Well, even their older albums, hell, even Orchid had more memorable lines than some of their more recent work. It's still good, but I think they're just fucking around half the time. Next honorable mention, Serpentine Dominion, the unlikely partnership between Killswitch Engage Maiden Man Adam D and Cannibal Corpse singer Corpse Grinder. And it kind of sounds like you would if you took the more intense parts of Killswitch and merged them with the power of Cannibal Corpse. A perfectly good side project album. What more do you want? Suicidal Tendencies, World God and Man. God damn, this is a lot better than 13. Having Lombardo behind the skins really helps too. If this is their last record, well, they're not going out on top, but I highly doubt they have another Lights Camera Revolution in them. But still, yeah, this is a lot better than 13, which just didn't... no. Next honorable mention, Superjoint caught up in the gears of application. Phil works better with people. The problem with Walkthrough Exits Only is it was way too loose, tried too much to be kind of jammy and just didn't have any cohesion. When Phil works with other people, though, there is cohesion. And I did find myself really enjoying this record, probably more than the previous Superjoint albums. Of course, you're probably going to hate this if you don't like Phil Anselmo, and I don't blame you for not liking the guy since he started off this year being a complete prick. He's apologized, though, and time will tell if he's sincere about that apology. Voivod, Post Society EP. This is an honorable mention because it's just more of Target Earth. Target Earth was fucking fantastic. But this is only 3 new songs in the cover. It's still very much welcome new material from Voivod, but it just really continues Target Earth. Doesn't really add anything to it. VOLBEAT, Seal the Deal, and Let's Boogie. It's more VOLBEAT. They haven't really changed all that much the past couple of albums, but they're still good. And my last honorable mention is Watchtower, Concepts of Math, Book 1. Finally, new physical Watchtower albums. I mean, it's just an EP, and a lot of it was collections of previous songs that were recorded. I don't even think Alan Tecchio's in the band anymore. That's why it's just an honorable mention, because a lot of these songs were recorded and released previously. But as a single physical album you can actually buy off the prosthetic store, I'm happy. If Alan Tecchio isn't in the band anymore, hopefully they can find a new singer. And hopefully we can get another EP, or God forbid, a full album. And that's the end of the honorable mentions. Now my top 25 lists. And man, I'm not going to make any friends with this list. Number 25! Look, I get Al Jorgensen, alright? 25 is Surgical Meth Machine. I know a lot of people fucking hate the fact that Al turned Ministry into a semi-thrash metal band when they came back, once Paul Barker left and he took full control of the music. But you know what? House of the Moly was fucking awesome. You really think that Dark Side of the Spoon, Animus Insomnia, and what was it? Filth Pig were good records? I mean, yes, Ministry's best work is Land of Rape and Honey. Mine is a Terrible Thing to Taste. He's in Psalm 69, but I prefer the thrash metal. I'm sorry. I prefer the new thrashy stuff. I thought it was funny. I thought it had really good riffs, and I guess I just get Al Jorgensen's sense of humor, because I thought it was excellent. Time will tell if this is just a one side project thing, but I kind of want to see more from this incarnation of Al. 24 is another album I saw on people's worst of lists. Evergrey, Storm Within. Yes, I know, Evergrey are capable of much better. I know that Evergrey have recorded a lot better. Like In Search of Truth and Recreation Day. But I really like singing along to these songs, man! It's not over. We'll soon be closer than before. 10 years from now, I'll watch from far away. 10 years from now, I'm sure I'll find my way right before it is over. Okay, I'll stop. But I hope you get my point that I really like singing along to Evergrey. Arms unfolding, stars exploding when I call your name. Number 23, Gorguts Pleiades Dust EP. It is marketed as an EP, but on the iTunes store you still pay full album price. But yeah, you remember what I said about Obscura? This is the opposite. This is technical death metal that has more songwriting to it. What's bringing it down, though, is the fact that it's a really long song that gets a bit too loose in some parts, but I can still jam out to it and still think it has some parts that can stick with you. Oh, Colored Sands is a lot better, but this is a good companion piece. 22, Ison Arctis. I need to listen to this album a bit more. For some reason, it didn't stick with me with the other prog stuff on this list, but it's still really good. Ison's been kicking ass ever since Emperor broke up. And even though they have reunited, they said they aren't going to make any more albums. I'm kind of sad about that, but I'm really glad that Ison can express himself completely as how he wants. Hell, I even think the Picaytum stuff was pretty good. Weird as shit, but still pretty good. And this is a continuation of what he has been doing these past couple of years. I'd say start off with Angel first, but this is a pretty good album. Number 21, Animals as Leaders, The Madness of Many. Tosin Abasi is God, alright? That dude, a lot of people like to put this as gent, but this really only has a little bit of gent in there. There's jazz fusion, prog metal, and it all somehow comes down to be much more cohesive than a lot of other technical bands out there. Definitely get an air of, oh, watch how great I am at guitar, but he can still make good songs. He can wow you with his technical skills and also wow you with his songwriting skills. The man's a genius. There's just no other word for it. Number 20 is Baby Metal's Metal Resistance, No I Am Not Kidding. Their first album could have been seen as a novelty act because it had a bunch of other genres punched into. Like, what the fuck was that hip-hop song? This, however, the songwriting is full-cylinder power metal. And it works. I don't know how, but God, it works. It's down so low because the three girls who sing for the group and are the face of the group don't write anything for it, which is kind of how Japanese pop works. But still, having something much more cohesive, much more focused, and much more powerful is probably what a lot of people wanted to see from baby metal, and they kick a lot of ass. Rob Zombie ain't wrong. This is no joke. This album's worth getting. Number 19, Neurosis, Fires Within Fires, the godfathers of the post-metal sound. And it's pretty low on the list. The album's actually, I think this is the shortest Neurosis album, barring their early days when they were a hardcore punk band. And their songs are a lot shorter too, but I think that actually makes them a little bit better. There's a lot less meandering that stuff like Eye of Every Storm had, even though that was still really good. It's a lot more powerful and a lot punchier too, despite the fact that this is still Neurosis doing their Neurosis thing. They're a band that has been going on a really long time, and I honestly thought they'd be retired at this point, but they still want to go on. And I gotta hand it to them. The guys who invented post-metal are still kicking ass at it. Next is Abath and his self-titled solo debut, taking all the music he did from Immortal and running with it, if Damonaz is to be believed. A lot of the problems I have with black metal is that they really have a lack of actual riffs to them. The greats like Bathory and early Darkthrone and Mayhem, they have great riffs to them. But a lot of what they inspired just seemed to be speed for speed's sake and trying to create a cool atmosphere. And while that's great and all, I prefer my music with riffs. And that's what Immortal really kicked ass at doing from On the Heart of Winter on, or like from Blizzard Beasts on. They've always had great riffs to them, and Abath continues that. We'll see next year if the Damonaz-led Immortal can live up to this. It's going to be hard though, since I think Abath wrote all the music to All Shall Fall, so we're gonna see. Yeah, but he left a pretty high bar for Damonaz to try and climb over after their divorce. I mean, they were married, right? Both their last names are Doom Occulta. Number 17, Cult of Luna and Julie Christmas, Mariner. You ever hear something and then never know how badly you wanted it until you listen to it? That's kind of this album, as Julie Christmas really fits with Cult of Luna's sound. I mean, even without her, this album would still be really good, but she adds just that extra something that makes the album kick a lot of ass. Her vocals can be childlike and then in an instant just become terrifying. She is one of the most talented vocalists in metal and needs to be used a lot more. Not just as a guest vocalist, as a full-on participant like in this album. Her ethereal voice really adds to what Cult of Luna do with their post-metal goodness. And I want to hear more from Julie. I know she's had some bands in the past, but she needs to be on more things, is all I'm saying. Number 16, Testament, Brotherhood of the Snake. I kind of sound like a hypocrite now, don't I? Because I put Megadeth and Anthrax on my honorable mentions for doing more of the same, and you can argue that this is more of the same from Dark Roots of the Earth and Formation of Damnation. So I guess I am kind of a hypocrite, but I guess I just like what Testament are doing now more than what Megadeth and Anthrax are doing now. Honestly, some of the music reminds me of newer Metallica, if Metallica didn't slow down at times, which makes me want to beg Metallica to take Testament out on tour. Wouldn't you go immediately see that? If Metallica and Testament were going on tour together, would you not line up immediately and wait in line for 4 days for tickets to go see that? I sure as shit would. Number 15, Nails, You Will Never Be One of Us. The anthem to all the Anita Sarkeesians, Bob Chipmans, and Natalie Zeds of the world. You're a poser, you're a faker, you're a bullshit maker. You will never be one of us. Hell, just that title track alone is powerful enough to warrant inclusion on this list. But the fact the rest of the album can still kick ass, that's just awesome. Violent, angry, aggressive, and they're also good at writing songs. We need more of people like Nails. Number 14, Witherscape. Dan Swano. God, I miss him. I think ever since exiting Bloodbath, he's sort of wanted to just be a producer now. But this proves that he can still kick ass in the melodic death metal world. And this definitely is his most Edge of Sanity sounding stuff in a while. And of course, Edge of Sanity is probably one of the best metal death bands ever. And this is a pretty following up legacy to that. They released an album previously, but not a lot of people heard of it. And I hope this album gets a lot more attention, because Dan Swano is a great musician, both behind the producer chair and outperforming. We need more Dan Swano. Speaking of Dan Swano and Edge of Sanity, you know what one of the best albums ever is? Edge of Sanity's Crimson, a 40-minute long song with weird sci-fi themes that melded melodic death metal and progressive metal. So it's no surprise that number 13 would be Insomnium, who made a 40-minute long melodic death metal song just with Viking themes more than prog themes, but it's also produced by Dan Swano. So you get your double dose of Swano. And this is an album, while it's probably not going to have the same impact that Edge of Sanity's Crimson to it, it could be seen as a spiritual successor, not just because Dan Swano is the producer, but these people get what made Crimson such a good song. And it's also 40 minutes too. It's epic, it's sprawling, it's memorable, it knows when to come back to riffs that made it kick ass earlier. I really like it. Number 13. Number 12, I'm seriously weirded out why this band wasn't everywhere when it came out. Ben Weineman from Dillinger Escape Plan, Brent Hinz from Mastodon, William Duvall from Alice in Chains. Why the hell wasn't this everywhere? Giraffe Tongue Orchestra. And it sounds exactly what you would think when the Dillinger Escape Plan and Mastodon guitarists team up together with the Alice in Chains frontman. A prog metal supergroup. That, yeah, it isn't really that Dillinger-y, but its melding of more Mastodon progressiveness with the accessibility that the Alice in Chains singer brings is something that gets kudos for absolutely working. Why isn't this everywhere, though, is what I'm saying. At number 11 is Gojira Magma. And confession time, I never really got into Gojira. I tried listening to Way of All Flesh when it came out, and if you dig through Metal Archives, and I apologize for ever being a part of that shitty website, you dig through the reviews there, you're going to find a review I did for The Way of All Flesh, that it just gets boring after a while. So I never really checked out anything else from them. However, hearing about the tragic circumstances that surrounded the recording of Magma, my sympathy spiked and I gave them another shot. And y'all, they're a lot better sold out. A lot of people can throw the accusations selling out now that they're going a bit more less death metal in their influences. They pretty much kicked their Morbid Angel sound to the curb. But this is surprisingly well good. It's so good, in fact, that the Grammys have put this album up for Best Rock Performance. Best Rock Album. Not Best Metal Album, Best Rock Album. I mean, they're going to lose to David Bowie because he died and all, but still, the fact that a pure prog metal album that definitely knows how to be intense is up for Best Rock Album at the Grammys. I think that proves how good this is. I mean, the Grammys are kind of a contentious organization in heavy metal circles anyway, but I think that proves that this is possibly Gojira's best record. And the fact that the fans are rallying behind them despite them a little bit softening to their sound, whereas about a decade or 2 decades ago, if bands softened their sound, they'd immediately get lynched, speaks a lot about heavy metal's maturity over the past decade since its inception. Now that that's down, let's go to top 10. Number 10, Omnium Gatherum Grey Heavens. Now, a lot of people are going to be kind of pissed off that I put this above Insomnium, but I like the vocalist better, and I like what Omnium are doing just a little bit better than Insomnium. Each song is powerful and flows into the next naturally. Hell, this album is worth the price of admission alone when you hear how they transition from track 1 to track 2. Look, all I'm saying is the riffs kick ass, and the vocals kick ass, and the guitar work is awesome. Number 9, Third Ion Biolith. Another album that I don't know why people aren't shouting it from the heavens. Not only do you have excellent musicianship on display, you also have an inventive, unique sound with the singer from Annihilator not sounding a damn thing like he does in Annihilator. And I love Annihilator. I love Dave Patton in Annihilator. He's gone, that kind of sucks, but hear him doing sounding completely different in a completely different band is a treat. Also, I think their drummer played for Devin Townsend for a while, so why the hell ain't more people talking about Third Ion? They're a Canadian prog metal supergroup, for crying out loud. And they do the retro game sounding thing a hell of a lot better than, say, Horse the Band did it 10 years prior, with it sounding an actual integral part of the music rather than just a cheap gimmick that the Nintendo Core bands did. Yeah, remember Nintendo Core? I sure as shit don't wanna. Third Ion Biolith. Get it? And listen to it while playing the game Axiom Verge. That's what I did, and it was an experience, let me tell you. At number 8, Alcest Kodama. Alcest are a band I have been with since the beginning. After hearing how good Souvenirs de Notre Monde is, I gave him a listen, and while a lot of people don't like the label black gaze or post-black metal, it definitely fits Alcest better than pretty much any other band doing it. They're gentle, but they can be intense as well. But still, even when they're intense, they still sound pretty gentle. Yeah, it can work. And while a lot of people kind of bemoan the fact that Shelter, their previous album, was a lot lighter, this one makes up for it by having a lot more intense moments too. Even though I maybe liked Shelter a bit more, this is Alcest back to some more of their roots, and it definitely works. At number 7, Nate Wants to Battle, Songs of Time. I am a gigantic fan of The Legend of Zelda, so much so that I'm salivating every day we get closer to that new game coming out. And Nate Wants to Battle is a YouTuber who does songs. He also does some gameplays, but he's most known for his music work. And this is barely a metal record, but Hero of Our Time is a weird but workable combination of power metal, alternative metal, and even a little bit of folk metal. Grounded has a little bit of a gent chord progression before going full metalcore. I don't even want to get how fucking epic The Evil King is. It's another album that I can't stop singing along to because dude's got a great voice. But yeah, it's kinda sorta metal. I believe his favorite band is Panic at the Disco, and that influence is huge in this album. I don't hate that band, they're just not my thing. So that could turn off a lot of people, but the fact that somebody actually made Zelda metal and it worked, I'm all about that. Go check him out on YouTube. Tell him I sent you. He'll have no idea who I am. At number 6 is Inquisition. Bloodshed Across the fucking whatever. God, I am sad that I just found out that this band existed. 2 dudes. A guitar singer and a drummer. 2 dudes that sound like 50. But what makes this album a lot better than other black metal groups that try this cosmic thing is that they actually have good riffs and can write decent songs. These are some of the best riffs that black metal has had in years, and I can only imagine that the albums from them previously also continue this. Well, I love it when black metal has riffs. I think that's why one of my favorite black albums is De Mistris Dom Sathanas. While a lot of black metal bands just focus on blistering cold speed, this album doesn't. And all for the better. I need black metal with more riffs that can still get the atmosphere that made the second wave so good. So yeah, I'm probably gonna go back and buy all of Inquisition's albums, because holy shit, this is grand. And now, top 5. Devin Townsend, Transcendence. Ooh, the story of Heavy Devi is a wild one. And Devin Townsend Project has been excellent. Every single album has been perfect quality. But I actually kind of preferred the Devin Townsend Project when it was spaced out and we knew exactly what was coming. Because we knew what Key was going to be, a sort of softer post-prog rock album. We knew that Addicted was going to be semi-industrial, catchy kind of thing. We knew Deconstruction was going to be a wild ride, and then we knew that Ghost was going to be a lot softer. And then he was going to stop doing this Devin Townsend Project thing, but then he decided to keep it going. I think we now know what kind of album Devin Townsend is, because this is pretty much the continuation of his last album. I mean, it still works, and still great. I prefer more deconstruction elements, but still, this is top 5. If you don't know who Devin Townsend is, get $100, go to iTunes, and buy every single thing he's ever done. Because Devin Townsend is one of the saviors of metal. In my eyes, at least. Even though he looks like Voldemort. Number 4, Dillinger Escape Plan Swan Song with Dissociation. I'm so happy I finally got to see him live. I only saw them live once several years ago, going to the Warped Tour, almost dying of heat stroke, and they were only on stage for like 20 minutes. But I'll never forget those 20 minutes. I wish I could see them perform a full set, but because of where I live, I ain't never gonna see that. But this is a proper way to end your career. Deciding to go out on top instead of petering away like other metal bands have, Dillinger Escape Plan have crafted the perfect swan song. Encapsulated by the final track that kind of sort of made me cry a bit, because of how just they're going out on top, but it's still sad to see him go. And like I said, they add a bit more different influences every single time they release a new album. I'm sincerely going to miss them. Number 3. Catatonia, The Fall of Hearts. I did not expect this album to be this fucking good. I mean, Catatonia have always been a very quality band. even after they change their sound from doom death to alternative, they're still catchy enough, they write good enough songs, but adding more prog elements to their music, this time pretty much going full prog metal almost, definitely works. This is their best album. I'm saying it right now. Brave Murder Day, that's a landmark in sad music, but this has to be their best album. I don't really know how to describe how good this album is. It's got more prog elements. Some songs are actually pretty hard to play guitar on. And the vocals, Jonas has never sounded better. I'm just listening to the album, having my jaw hit the floor every time. There's no other way I can really explain how good this is. You have to get this. If you don't know who Catatonia is, well, they're definitely going to sound a lot different if you go to their earlier days, but this is them realizing their fullest potential for this sound they want to do. We have a tie for second. And it's not just because they have the same singer in each band. These are both prog metal masterpieces, and they go about it different ways. Redemption is the Art of Loss, and Fate's Warning Theories of Flight. Holy shit. Redemption come at it for more of a metal standpoint, where Fate's Warning have a bit more of a prog standpoint. And of course, Ray Adler's vocals are fucking great. Though he hits more higher notes on Fate's Warning than he does Redemption, the intensity of Redemption's music definitely works more for his lower register. So do you like your prog metal more metal? Go Redemption. You like your prog metal more prog? Fate's Warning is going to help you out. But both these albums have some of the most perfect, catchiest riffs I've heard in prog metal the past couple of years. And of course, they're fun to sing along to. It's been a damn good year for prog metal, that's all I'm saying. And now time for number 1. I just bought Chemist's Hunted. I just bought Terminal Redux from Vector. Boy, they went through some shit recently, didn't they? I'm looking at a bunch of other people's top 10 lists for the end of the year. Oransi Pazuzu, a black metal band. Blood Incantation, Starspawn, that's on a lot of top 10 lists. Death metal record. Wormrot, more grindcore. Cobalt, or a black metal band, I've heard of them before. Astronoid, I've never heard of them. Oathbreaker, Summerlands, never heard of them. What I'm getting at is that, yes, I have not listened to a lot of the best records of 2016, I'll admit. Because Chemist, what I just said, they're on everybody's top 10 lists. Vector, they've graced number 1 on most of the lists they've been at. And I knew the band when they came out with their Outer Isolation album, never really listened to it. And I'm not going to make that mistake for Terminal Redux. I have a lot of stuff to catch up on. And I'm going to reiterate that promise I made. July, I'm going to come out with a list of the top 20 albums that I missed in 2016. All while trying to keep up and doing a lot better than I did this year. Because a lot of people are probably just yelling at me, disliking this video, and hey, I can't stop you. Because a lot of really good albums did not make it this year. But I will promise that I'm going to rectify that mistake. Coming up in July. That being said, my number 1 album is Metallica. Make no apologies, they're my favorite band. To me, your favorite album is going to be the album you listen to the most the entire year. And ever since I got Metallica's Hardwired to Self-Destruct, I have never stopped listening to it. James Hetfield's vocals have never been more on point. The production is 1,000 times better than it was in Death Magnetic. And even though it's kind of fucking weird that Kirk didn't participate in any of the songwriting's still great. Death Magnetic's songwriting was a little bit more cohesive, but getting 2 albums worth of material in one, I'm happy about it. Yes, no one's going to agree with me. I fucking love Metallica. I'm never going to apologize for loving Metallica. I've loved them at their worst, I've loved them at their best, and I'm loving them now. I like the riffs they made, I like the songs and how they are organized. Spit Out the Bone, the album's closer, that's the best Metallica have been since the 80s. And like I said, James Hetfield's voice and his power riffing have never been better, since maybe the 80s. But you know what? I kind of like his new voice, ever since he blew his voice out and had to learn how to sing in the mid-90s. I think he sounds better now. Yeah, I said it. Metallica's Hardwired to Self-Destruct. If you're a metalhead, you probably bought the album out of obligation. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. But it's my number one. And that's the end of my list. We made it through 2016. Y'all, that's worth celebrating. And heavy metal is only going to get better. I think this every year. More and more people, young, old, whoever, they're going to pick up a guitar, drumsticks, a mic, and they're going to want to make some heavy music. Heavy metal can only get better as the years progress, with more and more people wanting to make their mark on hard and heavy music. We can only get better. This was a great year for heavy metal, a fantastic year for heavy metal. Other years were better. 1985, 2001. Those are years a hell of a lot better than this. But despite the fact that a lot of people call 2016 one of the worst years in human history, either over-exaggerating. Remember the 40s when we were in our Second World War? Yeah, I think those years were a lot worse than this year. But a lot of people had this year as just bad. But heavy metal had a great year. So that's my top 25 lists of metal albums this year, with honorable mentions and disappointments. I've got one more list to do. I'm going to record it right after this, recapping my cinema experience. So, we made it. 2016 is in the books. I'm ready for the shit show that inevitably will be 2017. What are your favorite albums? I know I'm wrong in my picks. So tell me, what did I miss? What should I check out immediately? Put it in the comments, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you very much. if you want to laugh. The songwriting's still great. Death Magnetic's songwriting was a little bit more cohesive, but getting 2 albums worth of material in one, I'm happy about it. Yes, no one's going to agree with me. But I fucking love Metallica. I'm never going to apologize for loving Metallica. I've loved them at their worst, I've loved them at their best, and I'm loving them now. I like the riffs they made, I like the songs and how they are organized. Spit Out the Bone, the album's closer, that's the best Metallica have been since the 80s. And like I said, James Hetfield's voice and his power riffing have never been better. Since maybe the 80s. But you know what? I kind of like his new voice. Ever since he blew his voice out and had to learn how to sing in the mid-90s. I think he sounds better now. Yeah, I said it. Metallica's Hardwired to Self-Destruct. If you're a metalhead, you probably bought the album out of obligation. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. But it's my number one. Metallica will always be my number one. Shit, I think if I ever actually met James Hetfield, I'd probably break down crying. Not ashamed to admit that. He's one of my heroes. And that's the end of my list. We made it through 2016. Y'all, that's worth celebrating. And heavy metal is only going to get better. I think this every year. More and more people, young, old, whoever, they're going to pick up a guitar, drumsticks, a mic, and they're going to want to make some heavy music. Heavy metal can only get better as the years progress, with more and more people wanting to make their mark on hard and heavy music. We can only get better. This was a great year for heavy metal, a fantastic year for heavy metal. Other years were better. 1985, 2001. Those are years a hell of a lot better than this. But despite the fact that a lot of people call 2016 one of the worst years in human history, well, they're lying to you. Well, they're overstating that this is the year. I don't think this year was horrible. A lot of people saying this year is the worst in human history. They're over-exaggerating. Remember the 40s when we were in our Second World War? Yeah, I think those years were a lot worse than this year. But a lot of people had this year as just bad. But heavy metal had a great year. Heavy metal. So that's my top 25 lists of metal albums this year, with honorable mentions and disappointments. I've got one more list to do. I'm going to record it right after this, recapping my cinema experience. So, we made it. 2016 is in the books. I'm ready for the shit show that inevitably will be 2017. What are your favorite albums? I know I'm wrong in my picks. So tell me, what did I miss? What should I check out immediately? Put it in the comments, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you very much.